Maryland football has no choice but to beat Northwestern.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And also, I'm a publisher on InsideBlackandGold.net, so make sure you guys go over there for your latest Terps news. I think that we can say this early on in the week. I could have said this as soon as that game against Indiana ended. The Terps cannot lose this game against Northwestern. How this season has gone, how Coach Locksley has produced this year, how our record looks, how all these different factors, there is no way that the Terps can lose to Northwestern. We had no choice but to beat the Northwestern Wildcats. And there's so many different ways that you can approach it. One, I think for confidence in our team, for our coaches, for our players. Right now, it doesn't feel like we're a confident program. It doesn't feel like we feel like we are going to win every game. Like, I don't get that kind of vibe. Like, there were games last year where I felt like the Terps knew they were going to win. Like, we felt like there was no way we were losing this game. I haven't felt like that this year when we have played against good opponents. When we played Michigan State, when we played Indiana, I didn't get the vibe, I didn't get the confidence from anybody in that on that team, from coaching staff down, that we felt like we were a confident bunch of group, that we felt like we were going to win, that we should win. And so I think we got to get our confidence back. We got to get our swagger back. We got to get some of those things back, because I don't see us playing a confident brand of football. I see some second guessing out there. I see guys maybe overthinking a little bit. I see different position groups not playing up to the standard. And a lot of that comes down to me when you're playing a team like Indiana that, is probably better than us this year. I mean, they beat us. But I think a team like Indiana doesn't have necessarily more talent than us. I just think they're playing with really high confidence. Like, their quarterback, Curtis Rourke is playing really confident ball. He threw 2 interceptions against us, and he still felt like he still had the ability to sling it around and still throw for 359. Indiana turned it over 4 times again against us. That's the mark of a confident team, not to let that get to you. If we turn over the ball 4 times, I promise you we're not winning that game. And so I think we have to beat Northwestern to get a little swagger back going into the next game against USC and going into the second half of our schedule, which is a really challenging second half. So I think we have to beat Northwestern to be able to get some of that swagger, some of that confidence back that'll allow us to hopefully compete against a team like USC that's now unranked, but still a really good opponent. Hopefully to compete against a team like Oregon, hopefully to compete against even teams like Rutgers and Iowa and Penn State at the end of the year. I think we need the Northwestern win for some confidence, because I promise you, this is what's going to happen if we lose to Northwestern. I promise this will happen. People will start to ask a lot of questions, and Coach Locksley is going to be on the hot seat in terms of, not like he's going to lose his job, but he's going to be on the hot seat in terms of, what are you going to change? Because you can't just keep doing the same thing again and again and expect a different result. So he would feel the need, and maybe I need to change this, maybe I need to change that. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong. I'm not saying that Coach Locksley, I'm not sitting here and telling you guys that he shouldn't change anything, that everything should be the same, that nothing should be different. But I'm telling you guys that if we end up losing to Northwestern, they're going to feel the need to make changes. And that can change a lot of different things of your football program. And I'm not ready to make huge changes to this team. I'm not ready for complete new starters. I haven't given up on this team yet. I know we haven't been good, but I don't think that's beneficial. And people could start to kind of press the panic button after losing to a team, to Northwestern, that were favored to by 10 points. So in my opinion, you have to win this game for your confidence one, and then also for Mike Locksley and the staff for them not to feel the need to make big time changes, to feel like we still got a confident bunch of guys. We still have the right guys to be able to do this. And I think that we're going to win this game. But another huge reason why I feel like we need to win this game is the bowl game appearance. There's not very many more games on this schedule that will allow us to make a bowl game. There's not. What do we have to get to? 6 wins. Right now we're at 3. If you look at the schedule, there's not a ton of games where I can confidently say the Terps are going to win. And I think at the end of the day, we're a bowl team right now. That's what we are. If we can get this team to a bowl game, I think that's a successful year after how we have started 3-2. I think that if we can get this team to a bowl, that's a win. I think that's a good enough effort from Coach Locksley, and that'd be 4 straight bowl games, and you can't really complain too much about that, especially kind of where our program is. Eventually, you want to take another step in terms of you want to maybe get to 10 wins as a team or 9 wins as a team or some of those different things. But right now, getting to a bowl game is our only goal, I would say. Most of the other things are out the window. College football playoff, that was never really a realistic expectation, but that's out the window. A 10-win season, that's out the window. A winning season in the Big Ten, probably out the window. Getting to the Big Ten championship, I know they keep talking about that. That's out the window. But the bowl game appearance is one goal that is not out the window. And if you lose to Northwestern, it does not look great for your bowl game appearances. That means you would have to go undefeated against Minnesota, Rutgers, and Iowa, or upset USC, Oregon, or Penn State. And let me tell you, right now our program's not in a spot to beat USC. It's not in a spot to beat Oregon. It's not in the spot to beat Penn State. And Northwestern's our easiest game left on the schedule. I'll go ahead and say that. It's our easiest game left on the schedule. So if the Terps end up slipping up this game, then it makes it that much harder for us to get to a bowl game. It makes it extremely difficult. And I don't know if I see a pathway towards us making it without us going undefeated in those 3 games. And let me tell you, Rutgers got a pretty good football team this year. Iowa's got a solid team this year. Minnesota, they got a good team this year. Didn't they just beat USC? I'm pretty sure Minnesota just beat USC last week. Yeah, they just beat USC 17-24. And so you look at it and you say, if they lose this game, it's going to be extremely difficult to make a bowl game. And that's what you call this year. If you're going to call this year a failure, it's if the Terps don't get to a bowl game. And if the Terps lose to Northwestern, there's a pretty good chance that this season will end up being a failure because we probably are going to have a lot of trouble to getting to a bowl game. Not saying it's impossible, but it definitely puts it in territory. Even with a win, it's like there's still, like, I would give us probably like a 50-50 chance, to be completely honest, with a win. With a loss, I'd probably say it goes down to like 20%. Maybe it's like less than that. I'm not completely sure. But I think that when you look at it, I think that we want to get to a bowl game. And so this game is a must win for us to be able to get to a bowl game for the Terps. And then lastly, my last point, we're 0-2 in Big Ten play. Doesn't look good right now. And the goal right now isn't to be 1 in the Big Ten. It's not to make the Big Ten championship because obviously you can't really lose in the Big Ten to be able to do something like that. But to me, you don't want to have a terrible record in the Big Ten. You want to be something somewhat respectable in the Big Ten. A lot of people look at that Big Ten record and those Big Ten standings. Those are important for recruiting, for the team, for Mike Locksley. Those things are important. Where you land in the Big Ten compared to your opponents, that's something that matters. And so I think that's something that we gotta continue to try and build and try and get better at. It's been hard because of the Big Ten and the divisions in the past and having to play Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan every year. Those felt like penciled in losses and whatever. But now it's different. And you can get lucky or you can get unlucky or you can land somewhere in the middle with the schedule. I say we landed somewhere in the middle this year. It's definitely a difficult schedule, but it's definitely not like the hardest one possible that you could have with this Big Ten schedule with no divisions. But I want to be sober respectable. I don't want to drop to 0-3 in the Big Ten play because then you just look horrible at the bottom of the conference. So I think we got to get our confidence back. I want to see us playing more confident ball. I don't want Coach Locksley to feel the need to press the panic button. But overall, I think it's really important for us to win this game. And I don't think we have any other choice, or things could start to go downhill. And this season could turn into a failure quickly. Could Billy Edwards have a rebound spot against Northwestern? I think he can. I'll tell you about that after this ad from Roy. All right, Locked On Terps fans, it's time for your Roy Player of the Week. The Roy app lets you directly support your favorite athletes. Unlike collectives, where you make a donation to a general fund, Roy lets you choose a specific athlete you want to support. You back the players you care about, in return get an exclusive content after the season, like personal videos and updates. And the best part is it's risk-free. If the athlete transfer doesn't create the content, you get your money back. This week, I am choosing Roman Hemby. I thought he had a really good game last week and created some pretty big time plays, but I just contributed 100 to his campaign on Roy and want you to join me on making a payment as little as 10. When enough of us contribute, it's not just about the dollars, it's about the message we send any player together, and our collective support helps keep him connected to our school. Plus, Roy is doing their part to bring fans closer to their schools and athletes with an exciting giveaway. Roy is giving one lucky fan 2 tickets to any game of their choice in November. Here's how to enter. Just download Roy in the App Store or Google Play and use code LOCKEDON when signing up, and you're entered. Already on Roy, make a payment to any athlete's campaign. You'll be automatically entered. No purchase necessary. Voids were prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for official rules. Download Roy and try it out. There's no subscription, no recruiting fees, and for as little as $10, you can get the NIL game. Roy, support the players, change the game. So Billy Edwards, I think he's going to have a big rebound spot against a Northwestern team that I'm not convinced about. I think it's a spot where the Terps could have a really good game, and I think specifically Billy Edwards. Billy Edwards has been decent this year. He's been pretty good. I'm not going to say that he hasn't been good. He's been good. But I thought last game against Indiana, it was up and down, and I'm expecting a huge rebound spot from Billy Edwards, to be completely honest. I saw a guy that was inconsistent last game. He didn't throw the ball well enough. All right, there's a couple things. Let's take it a little slow. He was inaccurate. He missed way too many throws. And yeah, he made some big throws. And yeah, his stat line looks good because he didn't throw any interceptions. And it just looks good with the 3 touchdowns. But if he really got into that game, he easily could have thrown for over 300 yards, 320, 330 yards. He went 26 of 41 for 289 and 3 touchdowns. Arguably, we're still throwing the ball way too much. But I think that when you look at that stat line, you say that's pretty good. And yeah, it was not bad, but still the offense stalled a lot. And a big part of that was because he didn't make enough throws. And whenever your defense forces 4 turnovers, your quarterback should be able to win that game. And Billy Edwards wasn't. And I'm not blaming it all on him. It wasn't all because of him. But I do believe that he has to be a little bit better for the Terps and that he has to continue to improve and get better. I think that I want to use his running game more. I think that's something in the second half we have to do. He hasn't ran it enough. He's too talented of a runner for us to make him into something that he hasn't been his whole career. And yeah, I know he's showing that he can do it at a pretty good level, and he's been top of PFF in terms of ratings and those different things. But why don't we run the football more with him, more quarterback run? He's one of the most talented running quarterbacks in the Big Ten. And he's big. He can take hits. Obviously, we don't want him to, but he's a guy that he needs to run the ball a little bit more. And I think Coach Locksley, after the bye, has to implement that. That has to be something he looks at. But also, I thought he held onto the ball way too long. And I think that's something else after the bye that I think Billy Edwards is going to figure out with the offensive line, how he can get the ball out quicker, how he can get the ball out sooner. And I think that's something that's important for him to be able to do for the Terps is for him to be able to get the ball out of his hands. And I think I'm looking at a Northwestern defense, and it's nothing that I'm like scared of. Um, Indiana just played them last weekend. I mean, I thought Indiana is a really good representation of kind of like what, uh, since we just played them, it's a good measuring stick to see where both teams are. And Northwestern lost the game 41-24, similar score to how we played them. But this is a big reason why I'm expecting a big bounce back. I just watched the Indiana offense go crazy against Northwestern, and they went pretty crazy against us in a lot of areas, even with the turnovers. But if you look at this stat line Curtis Rourke put up against Northwestern, it's pretty big time. The Indiana quarterback, he was able to pass for 380, 33 passing attempts, and was able to pass for 380 yards in 3 touchdowns with 25-33. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, Maryland's got some really good players on the outside. Maryland's got Billy Edwards, who's played pretty well this year. I think we're going to be able to have a big day against the Northwestern defense. And I'm talking specifically about Billy Edwards. I think Billy Edwards is going to have a really solid day against Northwestern and do some special things that we haven't seen. It might be his best game of the year. We haven't seen him pick up a Big Ten win this year. And I think he's going to be able to do that. And I think the offense is going to be humming. I haven't seen this Northwestern defense play particularly well. When you look at all the stats and stuff, there was a bunch of Indiana receivers that played really well. Like Elijah Surratt had 7 receptions for 135. I immediately think Ty Felton, Caden Prather, those guys can get going. Kayshawn Williams for Indiana had 4 receptions for 87 yards. Omar Cooper had 2 for 47. E.J. Williams Jr. had a reception for 37 yards. Miles Cross had 4 receptions for them. Miles Price had 4 receptions for them. So they had a bunch of targets get going. So I think that when you look at Maryland, it's a similar type of thing as Indiana can do against Northwestern. We should be able to throw the ball. And so I'm okay if the game plan going into this game is to throw the football. But I'm also thinking that it's really beneficial that coming off the bye, because I think Billy Edwards will know I can't hold on to the ball nearly as long. I can't take that long behind our offensive line. We're going to have to do that a little bit differently. And I think that's totally fair for Billy Edwards to be able to do. I think that's what we want him to be able to do, is process a little bit faster, and it's going to take time. I'm not saying he's going to click right away, but I do think that he's going to have the opportunity to get the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker. I think that he's going to know that I held on to the ball way too long against Indiana, forced our offensive line to look pretty bad, and it wasn't definitely not all on them. A lot of it was on Billy Edwards. So I'm expecting a big bounce back coming after the bye. He's got a chance to rest up. He's got a chance to watch a lot of film, and then going into this game against Northwestern, I'm expecting him to go off against the Northwestern defense that I haven't seen a lot of good stuff again. So I'm definitely excited to see that. Like Will Rogers, quarterback for Washington, 20 of 28, 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. Expecting a big day for Billy Edwards. I'm expecting a bounce back spot. I'm going to quickly grade every position group on the Maryland football team so far this year. I am going to do that as my last segment. I'm going to do that after this ad from FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Make sure you guys go on to FanDuel. There's so many NFL games that you can bet on. If you want to bet on this Thursday night game, the Niners and the Seahawks, a big divisional game. If you want to bet the Niners -3.5, you can do that, or the Seahawks +3.5. You can do that on FanDuel. Plus, MLB playoffs are here as well. I know a lot of you guys all watch that. If you want to bet on that on FanDuel, you can do that. So make sure to go on to FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. I'm going to quickly go through every position group on the Maryland Terrapins team and grade every spot I think so far this year. Let's start on the defense side of things. Let's go from the bottom up. Let's start with the defensive line unit. So far this year, they're a C to me. They haven't been great, haven't been really, I wouldn't say good. I feel like they've been about decent. I think they're a C plus maybe. Sometimes they create a little bit of pressure, but a lot of times it feels like the opposing quarterback has a good amount of time in the pocket. Feels like they has time to process. I feel like it hasn't been as good as I thought it would be, especially with me thinking we're getting everybody back in that room. I expect it to be a pretty high end group of players. Hasn't really been that for the Terps. And so I think I would give them about a C plus. I think at times it's flashed and looked good, and I think players have looked good at times, but I've expected a little bit more. So I'd say it's been about average for the Terps. And with the kind of initial expectation of what I thought they would be, I thought they'd be better than what they have been. So I'd give them probably about a C plus. Moving on to the linebacker room, I think the linebacker room's been really solid. I've been impressed with some of the players on the Maryland linebacker room. I know Ruben Hippolyte's always been really decent. But my main guy that I'm really surprised has really impressed me has been Michael Harris. He's looked really good. Caleb Wheatland has looked solid. I give them probably about a B plus. They may be our strongest position group right now. I never complain about them too much. I never really give them enough credit. Just because it's weird because it's a linebacker room. It's not something that you initially usually talk about. But I do feel like they've been good. I'd probably give them a B plus. I think they've been solid. I think that Caleb Wheatland's been solid. I think Michael Harris is really coming on. And I think Ruben Hippolyte has been decent as well. I think they can still play a little bit better and do a couple things a little bit better, but that's with any position group. And they haven't been amazing, so I don't want to give them an A, or they haven't been great, so I don't want to give them an A. But I think a B plus is so far so fair for that linebacker room with how they've played. Let's move on to the corner room. I'm going to go ahead and say a D. Have they been good? No. Have they been good any game outside of the UConn game? Outside the UConn game and the Villanova game? Not really. I haven't really seen them play well. I saw them play horrible against Michigan State. First half against Virginia, I saw them get kind of pushed around. And against Indiana, yeah, we created some turnovers, but still, I'm not going to live in this turnover thing. Like, unless it's the type of turnover where it's created where it's like, oh, like that's because the corner really clamped him and he really made the play instead of, oh, the quarterback just overthrew them. Like, Michigan State, those turnovers weren't because of us. That's because Aiden Childs was playing bad. And so I don't want to take too much stock into that, but they've been getting kind of beat. Hasn't been good. And Maryland corner play and secondary play has been good over the last couple of years, and it hasn't been good this year. And it has to get better for us to want to get better. So I rank that at about a D. Safety room, Dante, Glendon, Jacobs when he's got the chance. Some of the other guys, they've been pretty solid. I don't really have any complaints. They might have to come up more than solid. I think I guess we're giving a grade, not just solid. I would give him probably a B. I think Dante's been pretty good. He got a little nicked up last game, but he's supposed to be back. But I think they've been good. No really complaints there. Let's move on to quarterback and Billy Edwards. I think he's been a B as well. I think he's been a B type of guy, which isn't bad at all for a first-year starter. I think he's shown some really high-end play, and then he's also been sometimes, and he's been decent sometimes. And I'll meet you there at a B plus probably about for Billy Edwards. We've talked about him a lot. We don't have to talk about him too much. The running back room to me is a C plus. Sometimes they flash, but a lot of times it's just like we can't get anything going in the run game. And this goes hand in hand with the offensive line, which I'm also going to give. I'm going to give them a C minus. It goes hand in hand. And I can say that they just haven't been that good in creating run lanes and pass protection. But the running backs, they just haven't been able to get much going a lot of the time. I know Roman Hemby had that one big rush. Feels like forever ago now with the bye week, but they just haven't been great. And that's kind of how I would say there's flashes, but there's just not enough. So I give the running back room a C plus. Offensive line probably C minus. Receiver room, I give an A. To be honest, A minus, I would say. I think Ty Felton's been one of the best receivers in the country, and Caden Prather's been really good too. And some of the younger guys have done a good job stepping up. I don't have too much complaints about the receiver room. I'd say they're probably about at an A level, A minus type of level, and I think they're going to continue to get better for the Terps overall. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.